The best is yet to come, and babe, won't it be fine?
You think you've seen the sun, but you ain't seen it shine.
Hello everyone, welcome to Ask the Treksperts, the show where we answer your questions about Star Trek. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Sarah.
We will start answering your questions on our next episode. Today is going to be one more that we came up with, and today we'd like to talk about when is it a good idea to kill off a main character? And obviously in the confines of Star Trek, and I mean, these days we kind of live in a world where title characters get killed off all the time.
Right.
And by title characters, I don't mean like the character who's the title of the show. You know what I mean? Like, they're probably never going to kill off House. I don't in House. But
from what I've heard, he's the best character on it.
Yeah, but Star Trek has, of course, done it also, and did it before it was a fad. And we'd like to talk about when we think that's a good idea, and give examples about it. So, Sarah, why don't you start?
When was it a good idea to kill off a...
When was it actually a good idea to kill off a main character?
Well, I'd say right when TNG first started. A couple episodes in, Tasha Yar had to go.
And you didn't like Tasha Yar?
At all. She did absolutely nothing for the show, although, none of the main bridge crew in TNG had been really developed by that point even.
Not especially established yet.
But she was the worst of them.
Okay.
Besides maybe Wesley.
I like to make the case that that character wasn't around long enough to really become a character that anybody would especially appreciate. And there are Tasha Yar fans, and so this isn't anything against people who really like Tasha Yar, but I wonder if it isn't that people like Denise Crosby more than they like Tasha Yar.
I like Denise Crosby.
When we've met her, and she was cool, and I absolutely love her. And she was one of the most entertaining guests at the convention we went to last year in Tulsa. And she's a lot of fun to talk to in person. I think we stopped by and talked to her 3 times, and she was always really fun to talk to. But, and of course, she's really cool in the Trekkies movies. I think she's done a lot more for Star Trek since Tasha Yar.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, this isn't anything against Denise Crosby or necessarily her performance, but I just felt like that character didn't bring enough to the table.
Yeah, well, the best thing, the most defining moment of that character's existence was getting eaten by a big, goopy glop of tar.
And it was a big deal just because shows at that point didn't usually kill off main characters, so it was sort of like TNG was pushing envelopes, and in a way it was, but ultimately it was just a way to write the character out because Denise Crosby was leaving the show. It wasn't that they were killing her off and she didn't want to be killed off. And I'm not even sure that Denise Crosby wanted her character to get killed off. She had decided to leave the show, from my understanding. Okay. And so I would venture to say that it's not really a big deal to me that Tasha Yar got killed off because I never really got her. I don't dislike her, I just never got her as a character. She didn't do anything as a character really, but the way they killed her off was awful.
That's true, because like they said in yesterday's Enterprise, it was a really meaningless,
it was a pointless death. Yeah, and I don't think if it weren't for yesterday's Enterprise, I don't think anybody would necessarily. Well, I don't want to say anybody, but I'm not sure that as many fans would appreciate Skin of Evil if it weren't for yesterday's Enterprise.
I agree.
Because her death was huge for that show, and yesterday's Enterprise is a really interesting episode.
It is, and it actually made her a good character for that one episode.
And Denise Crosby's performance in that is top-notch.
It was, yeah.
Other points in Star Trek where it was actually a good idea to kill off a main character. Can you think of any?
Let's see.
And we're talking mains, not villains, and not recurring supporting characters, just like main characters.
The ones I'm thinking of are all ones that I really wished hadn't gone.
And of course, one of the biggest ones is Dax.
Yeah.
Jadzia
that
Dax.
was just such bad timing, I think. Yeah. Right before 7th season.
Well, 6th season with the whole Dominion War thing is really, really, really top-notch Star Trek.
Yeah.
And Dax was always a cool character to me. I always really liked her, and once again, that was a case where they killed her off because the actress was going to another show.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm not sure she could have been written out in a good way. I think you had to kill her.
Yeah, but and she had I think she had kind of a good death sequence.
Do you think? Well, it wasn't as pointless as Yar. It wasn't as pointless as maybe some of the other things we'll talk about here in a minute.
I think getting killed by Gul Dukat's a good death.
It might have been neater though if it had just been like if she had just been killed in cold blood by Dukat. shot with a phaser, stabbed or something. And Gul Dukat being who he is, I think it would have been a lot cooler if they had set it up in such a way where he for some reason decided she needed to die, and then he found some way to justify it to himself. I would have loved that a lot better.
I would have too.
I also wouldn't have minded her leaving so much if it hadn't been for the fact that she was replaced with Ezri Dax, who I never liked.
At all. Yeah, if she had been replaced by somebody
Or
equally as cool.
Or not replaced at all.
Yeah, but, or just, here's where the Dax symbiote went, and it's to this random person who actually lives on Trill.
And doesn't have to be a recurring...
Right.
Or it could even be somebody who comes back a couple times.
Yeah, but not a main character who really is bad.
Because making her work for a regular character was contrived, and I mean, even besides the fact that I just don't really care for the character.
Yeah.
And there are some Ezri Dax fans, but I don't like her, and she certainly didn't hold up to Jadzia.
Yeah, not at all.
Data got killed off in Nemesis.
Right.
And which was kind of contrived.
Yes. Yeah, it was. There were any number of ways they could have written the script so that he didn't get killed.
Yeah, sure.
Which means that it was... They meant for it to happen, and I know that that's what Data wanted for his character, but...
Yeah, what Brent Spiner wanted.
Yeah.
I understand why Brent Spiner wanted Data to get killed off, because he thought, well, if we have any more movies after this, I'm too old to play the character.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense that he then decided to help invent B4, who sticks around after that, so even if they had made another movie, there would have been still Brent Spiner playing a Data-like character. So none of that ever made sense to me, but I didn't mind that they killed Data off. I just didn't like the way they did it.
Yeah. There was very little about Nemesis in the first place that made sense.
Yeah, fair enough.
But
just,
don't contrive a death just to make a scene.
And the other one that especially you were vehemently opposed to was the death of Trip Tucker at the end of Enterprise.
I hated that. Well, I started watching Enterprise middle of third season, and from then on, I just loved Trip Tucker. I mean, I know there are a lot of people who hated him from the beginning.
Yeah, and I don't hate him, but I got issues with him. Yeah.
But I really fell in love with his character, and so when he had such a contrived death as he did at the very end of Enterprise, it just killed the series.
It was too avoidable. It's one of those deaths that was just too avoidable. If the thing is, you can get away with something like that if you make it believable.
Yeah, they didn't. They didn't even try.
And part of the problem also was that the last episode of Enterprise already wasn't enough about the characters from the show. It was too much about Troy and Riker.
Yeah.
And so it was too much of a downer. You kill off Trip Tucker, who's one of the only characters who got anything to do in that episode that's actually in the show, and you do it in a really contrived way, and I don't know, it was too much of a cop-out. I think it can be a good idea to kill off a character when it says something about that character.
Yeah.
I don't mean like they've lived out their usefulness, so now it's time for them to die, but I just mean...
when it flows from the story.
Yep.
And I don't think Tasha Yar's death did that.
No.
But I think that, I'd say that perhaps Jadzia Dax's
Sort of did that.
Of all the Trek deaths.
If it had happened at the end of the series, it could have worked.
Or Spock's.
Spock's?
At the end of
Wrath of
2.
Khan. Yeah.
Because that flowed from the story. I'd say that was the best death in all of Star Trek.
I would agree with that. Now, I would also say that there's a character that should have been killed off, and wasn't, and because it would have. It really is the only thing that ever made sense to me once I heard that it was supposed to happen and didn't. Brandon Braga pretty much invented 709.
Right.
And always said that he wanted to kill her off in the final episode. He wanted to kill her off at the end. And the reason that they have the alternate... That's the reason they have the alternate history at the beginning where she's killed off.
Okay.
But then they changed the story to where Admiral Janeway goes back in time and saves her.
Right.
Originally, it was just going to be left to where she dies.
That could have been interesting.
Exactly. And the reason it would have worked, his whole argument, and I love this argument, is 7 of 9 is a tragic character.
Yeah.
7 of 9 is a character who was bored, was ripped away from the collective and didn't want to leave, then tried to become human, and the way he wanted to write her was so that throughout the entire series she tries to become human but never quite gets there. And so she has no home, and the only place for her to go is either back to the Borg or she dies.
Right.
And I love that.
Because there really is no place for her on Earth.
Exactly. But she makes it back to Earth, and whatever happens to her, of course, we don't know.
Yeah.
And that would have been, and depending on how they killed her off, they could have done it in a sacrificial way, just like they did with Spock. But anyway, so I think when it makes sense for the character, when it really says something about the character, when the character has had a linear progression, the end of their life is the end of their story, that's when you kill them off.
Yeah.
And I feel like that should have been 7 or 9.
Yeah. You could have a point there. I would have liked to have seen that, actually.
Well, we're all out of time. Please leave us your comments with any ideas you might have for future episodes, questions you might have that you'd like to ask us, and also any episodes that you might be interested in having us review, because we are planning on doing some episode reviews. I'm Captain Logan.
I'm Sarah.
And thanks a lot for watching Ask the Treksperts.
The best is yet to come.
The best is yet to come. The best is yet to come.